Are you experiencing stress or anxiety during this pandemic time? We all are. But do not fear, Mental Health Monday is here. Aloha and welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited about today, Mental Health Monday, because it's something that's very close to my heart. I struggle with an anxiety disorder and have since I was a young child. I was born to a bipolar mother, and although she loved me, she didn't know how to love herself, and she was ill, so she made a lot of mistakes. And it wasn't her fault, but I suffered great trauma when I was a child. And what happened was my mother went to a mental hospital twice by the time I was 8 years old. And I was carted to relatives where I experienced trauma after trauma. She called me ugly names, not because she didn't love me, but because she didn't love herself. But I had to escape. So I ran away and got married at age 16, which I thought was a good idea at the time. But I found out that my anxiety, which I couldn't put a name to at the time, followed me wherever I went. And it got to the point where I couldn't go to the grocery store because I would be overwhelmed with this feeling of panic, and I had to drop all my groceries and run out of the store. I didn't know what was happening to me. I just knew I was scared all the time, and it came to a place in my life where I couldn't even leave the house. So I suffered from agoraphobia. I hated myself. I acted out of desperation and made poor choices in my life because of this, trying to escape this thing that I didn't know what it was. But throughout my life, I've had a friend, a helper, and that's books, the written word. First, I wrote in my first it was books, and then I wrote in my diary, and then I wrote spoken word and poetry. Finally, I wrote a memoir. And all of this helped me deal with the trauma and the pain that I was going through. But first came books. Books was the impetus of everything. So how can this help you? How can me talking about myself help you deal with the day-to-day life of this pandemic that we're going through, even though we're all in an anxious state, or most of us? Aha, the answer is books again. They have the secret in them to help us navigate our struggles. Years ago, hundreds of years ago, people were still people, and they dealt with the same problems, or different problems, but also the same problems that we deal with today. And they wrote about it. Well, authors did. And if we glean through those books, we can find the answers to solve our own problems. And that's what I did. As I became obsessed with certain authors, for example, Betty Smith, A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, Pico Iyer, and D.H. Lawrence, I found answers to many of the problems that I was facing. How did they deal with things? How did they handle their problems? And believe me, as in D.H. Lawrence's case, he had a lot of problems, especially with Lady Chatterley's lover. He was practically thrown out of his country. I'm going to give you a small example of how a random book that I picked up in my first haul made me happy. In my first haul, I talked about Josephine Tey, who wrote, and I talked about A Shilling for Candles. Now, this isn't a great book. I can't call it a great book in the terms, in the sense of a mystery, because it's very much all over the place. Many characters, and I have to tell you, in the beginning of the book, I was very disappointed. Now, Josephine Tey was a very unusual person. Not much is known about her, but I knew that by reading her books, I would not only find out what made her tick, but answers to some problems. So from the beginning, I was disappointed. The book was written in the 1930s, and it had a British slang to it that I didn't understand, and in the beginning, a lot of characters that sort of just didn't fit in. Of course, a woman is murdered at a beach, so I'm not telling you any spoilers by telling you this. But until Inspector Grant comes on the scene, it was pretty boring. Until I came upon page 116, where there's a girl that's introduced named Erica. And Erica, I think she's Josephine Tey, because she's unusual, she helps solve the crime, she's independent, her father is an inspector, a colonel rather, and she's quite interesting. And I said, this is Josephine Tey, especially after I read that part. Now, what happened was, when Inspector Grant meets her in the street, he sees that he thought to himself, if it wasn't for her fancy shoes, she's dressed like a charity child. And I'm thinking to myself as I read the book, I wonder if Josephine Tey dressed unusually. And then I saw a picture of her, and she was dressed in a man's suit. So I said, okay. Not only that, but the girl, Erica, is very independent, and she goes about trying to solve the mystery. But the thing that got me, that really perked up my ears, was on page 116. So not too far from the beginning of the book. And she encounters a suspect to the crime. And he had run away from Inspector Grant. And she finds him just on the street. She has an old car that she's driving because she doesn't want to give it up. It's a real, bad car, an old car. And she sees his feet, and she notices he's sleeping on the street. And from the beginning, she thought he was innocent, and she wants to protect him. So on page 16, he had told her that he loved raisins in his chocolate. And after she left him, she says, it had not even occurred or crossed Erica's mind that she was tired, that there remained less than an hour before closing time, and that a starving man might just as well have good solid lumps of plain chocolate as be indulged in his light preference for raisins. No, Erica, although she could not have told you about it, knew all about the importance of little things, especially the importance of little things when you're unhappy. And then she goes about finding him the chocolate with raisins. And I thought, whoa, this is an important point for people who suffer with anxiety. How can the importance of little things make you happy, I thought. And I thought to myself how I love my Yorkshire expensive gold tea instead of Lipton. That makes me happy. And I have a friend who she loves truffles. So she'd rather have 2 truffles instead of a whole block of chocolate. Sort of like the guy in the book. Now, in another part of the book, another character who's a dresser for the actress recalls how she was always unhappy when she got a letter from a particular person. And the actress, who's now deceased, murdered, says, "Hate is so lowering." So I'm going to go to that part right now. Hate is very lowering, isn't it, Bundle? Bundle had never hated anyone except a cop who was habitually rude to her, but she had hated him plenty. And she agreed that hate was very weakening, burned you up inside until there was nothing left. Now that taught me something. Josephine Tey, the author, didn't waste time hating people, because she knew that she was only hurting herself if she hurt other people, or if she hated other people. So we can see how Josephine Tey felt about mental illness. And there's other parts in the book where she's talking about claustrophobia, which really is very interesting, but I won't go into it now. Now, there's one other part that I want to talk about, and that is another character in the book who's Erica's father's groom. So I assume that means he takes care of the horses, because they're very rich. And he brought her up because Erica's father had lost his wife when she was in childbirth. So his name was Kindness. Kindness. And he gives her money to help the suspect. But just the fact that his name was Kindness made me think. Kindness and small things to make us happy when we're down, like during this period of the pandemic, where we're all kind of down for some reason or other. So that's my mental health tip for today's Mental Health Monday. And I hope that you will get something out of it. Maybe bring somebody some kindness, have something special to give yourself as a treat, whether it's a bath salts, or a cup of tea or chocolate, or something that makes you happy. A small exact thing that you want. It doesn't have to be expensive. I know I don't have any money, but I make sure that I have one special thing a day that makes me happy. And I hope to bring kindness to everybody that I meet. So if you like this video, please comment, subscribe, like, and press the notification bell. And I promise that I will try to be as helpful as I can in all my videos, because we all need kindness. So until we meet again, aloha.